Okay, so we're going to now go into the page 78 and the next chapter in this mimer. After the couple of days of introduction about Das. It's all introduction, but let me say something else. This is part of the mimer before we get to the next part of the mimer. We did the first 5 chapters, now to the 6th chapter. But one more word of introduction before we get to the sixth chapter. Intellect is external. You understand something, makes sense to you. That's all external. It's not real. You're not getting the real truth of something. Someone's going through something. Someone has a difficulty in paying their bills, let's say. Someone's difficulty Hashem gesund in their health. So I could hear the concept, the words. The doctor could explain to me the specific condition that person is going through, right? I can understand the details of that they're going through. Or I could actually identify their pain with my personal pain. I could think about my own financial hardship and my own issues in health, Hashem. So when I think about how their personal plight and I identify it's my own plight, I think about how things I've gone through myself. So that's the ability of Das. Das is ability to get to the pneumius, to get to the inner meaning of what's going on, not just the periphery, not just the words of what's going on. I'll give you an example. A child goes to a doctor, and unfortunately his mother died because of corona. So the child goes over to the doctor and says, "What happened to my mom?" The doctor says she died. This kid says, "Why did she die?" And the doctor says, "Because of corona." The doctor has no idea what the child is asking. The child is not asking what made it. She's asking, "My mom, what happened?" So it's possible to discuss something and intellectually with things that make sense and very deep intellectual things, but yet be told so far from the reality of something. Das is the ability to get to the pneumius, which means the inner meaning of something, the reality of something. That's what Das is.
It's total understanding. It's complete understanding.
It definitely completes the understanding process. But I want to say is that Chachma and Bina, the ability to create the idea and understand the idea, they're all external. Das is about really bringing it, both getting to the inner meaning of what you're discussing and bring that inner meaning into yourself.
Are you referring to Das Eliyah?
No, I'm referring to regular Das. Regular Das in general is about understanding not just the periphery of something, but getting to the inner meaning of what something is, the reality of it. And Das affects me too, that I don't just, if I just understand intellectually, so then it's just something which is external. I don't feel it in my heart. My heart isn't affected. Das is ability for me to actually to relate it to my inside. Das brings me to the inside of the subject, and Das brings the subject inside of me. There's a subject, and I could talk about it intellectually, but not getting to the inner core of it. And then when I get to the inner core of it, the inner meaning of it, that will bring it inside of me. This is true in every single subject, in every subject. We were discussing yesterday about anti-Semitism, and yeah, you could talk about the same subject, the same details of how many rockets, how many people died, and this is how many Palestinians died, this is how many Jews died. And you could say, okay, the Palestinians were many more Palestinians died, and it was a great tragedy to the Palestinians. Or you could feel what's really going on. That there's a real Nazism that's growing there in Gaza, and they really want to kill as many Jews as possible throughout the world. And instead of just talking about the words, but what's really going on? What's really going on? That's Das. That's what's really going on. And when you know what's really going on, it affects you in a different way. You feel differently. Or the other narrative, the not true narrative, which is that Israel is the oppressor, Israel is apartheid. Their Das, their erroneous Das, their Das is saying, we feel that there's real oppression going on, and these people are just trying to free themselves from the oppression. They're not. It's the same facts, the same intellect, but they have a whole different connection to the reality of it. Their reality of it is definitely wrong, but I'm just pointing out that the words haven't changed, the amount of missiles haven't changed, the amount of deaths haven't changed, but there's coming into touch with the reality of what's going on the ground. And when you come into touch with the reality of something, it makes it real to you. It makes your feelings. That affects how you feel. That's in general das, and we'll get to das alien soon in this chapter. Okay. 78. Das is what connects chachma with bina. That's the meaning of the pasuk. Adam knew Eve. The Torah is referring to the physical intimacy of Adam and Eve. And the Torah refers to this as Adam knowing Eve. Because das, again, doesn't just mean that you know something. Das means that you really connected to it in a very tangible way. So Adam knew Eve refers to Adam's physical intimacy with Eve. The meaning of Adam and Chava. In Kabbalah, Adam represents the sphere of Chachma, which, as we learned, is the ability to create an idea. And Chava, Eve, represents understanding. And it says in the Torah that understanding is called the mother, and the power to create an idea is called the father. So Chava, which is the power of understanding, she's the mother of the children. She's the mother of feelings. What gives birth to feelings is understanding. When things are just a concept, without it being developed in detail, no feelings can be produced. Chava, which is understanding, is the mother of the children, is the mother of feelings. For Adam Yoda, what does it mean that Adam knew Eve? What is the power that connects Chachma with Bina? That's the ability of Das. Das connects Chachma Bina. What this means in our service of Hashem, that means that not only do you understand the concept, you try to understand the chapter in Tanya that you mentioned before, but you're connected with the very core of your heart into the idea that you're trying to understand. Bina, understanding by itself, is just thoughts. Even thinking very deeply about something does not touch your heart. Let's say this. What are we saying? You don't have the ability to decide how your heart should feel about something. Your heart feels based upon what you understand. You feel based upon your understanding.
You can't control it.
You can't control it.
Right.
You can't control either if you understand something or not. You learn it, and hopefully you understand it. But you can't control your understanding. You learned chapter in Tanya last night. Whether you understand it or not is not your decision, right? Right?
Okay, that's good to know.
It's not you try to understand it, but whether you understand it or not, something's go over your head. You didn't get them. You have to work on it. I'm not saying you can't give up, but then there is the desire. You desire things that you desire. You have also no choice of what you'll desire. There's one thing you have a choice about, and that is yourself. Yourself is what you connect to, what you give of yourself for. That's up to you. What you have the decision to give yourself and put yourself into something. You don't have the decision to understand or to feel, but you have the decision that you want to put yourself into anything that you want to put yourself into. There is matan adam yarchavlei. The pasuk says when a person gives his man, so then yarchavlei, so then he gets divine assistance. Then things open up. Things become broader. Things become open. Matana, when you put yourself into something. So we're discussing the Adam and Eve, and we're saying that Adam and Eve represent the ability to create ideas and the ability to understand ideas. Something could be could be understood and very deeply to you, but are you connected to it? Is your whole being into it or not? And the Rebbe is saying to us, it's not sufficient for us just to learn these about these concepts. We have to put our heart into them. We have to connect in the deeper part of our hearts with what we're learning.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
how can you put your heart into something? Okay, I was reading Tanya last night. How can I possibly put my heart into it where I'm not even grasping what they're trying to say? How can I say, this is absolutely amazing, but I'm not really understanding it or relating. Maybe I'm not related to it.
Yesterday was anniversary of passing a good friend of mine. His name was Reb Avram Plotkin. Avram Plotkin. I was just at a yard event in his memory. Rabbi Wolf was talking about him. Rabbi Wolf from La Brea. So he said about him that whenever they learned Chassidus together, and he didn't get it, it bothered him. It bothered him so much so that like later on in the day, there by the Kiddush, you could see like something bothering him. He wants to know, why didn't he get that mind? What is Imam really saying? So there was a woman, she used to always go to this rabbi's talks on Shabbos before Musaf, and she always would cry. Every time she cried. So Rabbi went over to one time, he said a very particularly joyful speech about joy and about happiness, and she's still crying. So he said, what happened? She says, I have a son in the military. My son's in the military. I'm worried about my son. He's in the army. So you say that kind of speech, this kind of speech, doesn't matter. My son is in the army. In a similar way, when you learn Chassidus, you have to feel it's your son that's in the army. We're talking about, it's about me and you. It's about something which matters to us, because this is the key for us to connect to Hashem. So it's not that the concept matters to you, because you know what the concept is yet. But it's the fact that there's something that the Rebbe is saying to you, and it's about your neshama, and it's about your neshama's journey, that should matter. You hear what I'm saying?
It matters, but I don't really understand what a neshama. I know basically what a neshama is, but I don't know what it is. I mean,
I'm saying
something that I don't know.
Imagine you're in a personal audience with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe give you advice for your life. You would really want to know what he's saying, right?
100%.
Okay, so that's how we're supposed to look at Chassidus. We're looking at this book. We should look at this not as just a book. This is personal advice from the Rebbe for us to live with, and therefore we should get into it. That's where we're going. Okay, so we're talking about the fusion of Adam and Eve, about the ability to create the idea and the ability to understand the idea. And we're saying that what connects them both is a sphere of the us. So let me say a little bit about what that means. The ability to create an idea means that you're Archimedes, and you are trying to figure something out, and then eureka, you get inspiration, oh, this is the answer. You jump in the bathtub and you see the water go up, you know that you have an answer. The parallel for that in learning Chassidus is getting a real insight into the truth of Hashem. That you see, let's say, divine providence in a very vivid way, and Hashem's truth is something which becomes very clear and obvious to you. You see how things connect. You see a miracle, let's say. You see how Hashem's truth is very real to you. Then there is after that initial inspiration, then you sit down and try to think, oh, what does this really mean? That means when I say something, someone's listening to me. When I do something, someone's watching me. And with your understanding, you realize that there's always an eye that sees and an ear that hears, and someone is looking into your heart and mind all the time. And you develop that, and you think deeply about every word that you're saying, every step that you're taking. That's understanding. So usually understanding and seeing are two different realms. Seeing divine providence is very inspiring. When you go to the realm of understanding, it usually cools it down. In today's Hayom Yom, for example, we learn about the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe his original discourses were very inspiring. They would shake you up. You hear the Alter Rebbe speak, and they were called drachim, paths. The first Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, the one you're learning from. Before he developed a whole system of study of Chabad and intricate discourses, he would just say very short, inspiring sentences, paragraphs pages, but very short. So these inspiring things that he said, they shook you up on the one hand. On the other hand, when he developed more, he made them less inspiring, more detailed, and longer. Why did he do that?
Good. Yeah, I want to know that.
You would think that he has the power to just like pump you up, like shock and awe, and like that would be better. But as he developed more and more, he actually made the discourses less inspiring, more detailed, and more intricate. Oh, very good.
What did you just say?
In the introduction to Tanya, you may have saw the short and long way and the long and short way. So the original discourses, a good analogy, I think, could be, the Alter Rebbe says there's a short and long road. It means it's short, but it's long because it doesn't address the core issues. It's a short. Let's think of like you have an issue, a medical issue, and you go to a doctor, gives you an aspirin, and it may make your fever come down, but may not solve what's going on inside of you. Maybe not solve the virus. That it may make the virus's symptoms go away, but not the cause of the virus. Then there is another kind of doctor who wants to go all the way and understand. I was at a doctor yesterday with my children, who was more of a healer kind of doctor, and she says, "How much did your children weigh when they were born? And what kind of birth was it? What kind of pregnancy was it?" And I'm thinking like, okay, we've been here for a long time. That's where your questions are going. So, but that's the long short road. Whether she's right or not doesn't matter. The point is, there is a long road trying to get to the core of the issues. Once you get to the core of the issues, then you can get to then you're able to address the symptoms.
Tell me this is right. The doctor who wants to know every detail, what's causing this illness, and I want to get to the very crux of the matter.
Right.
Okay, so
that's the long short road.
That would be Das Shelem, right?
Whoa, hold on. That's a long and short road. So the Alter Rebbe's discourses, as they developed, he took away some of the light of the discourses, but he brought it down in a way that people could understand it and interpret it and make it make sense to them. When you were in the environment of the earlier discourses, you may have been more inspired, but there was less you could take home with and less you could bring into your own persona. I'll give an example about the Alter Rebbe himself. The Alter was upset about one of his teachers. Alter Rebbe, the teacher, I think his name was Rabbi Yaakov Skabla. Rabbi Yaakov Skabla was a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov, and he never told the Alter Rebbe about the Baal Shem Tov. Even though he's Alter Rebbe's teacher and he was a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov, he never told Alter Rebbe about the Baal Shem Tov. I don't know if Rabbi Yaakov was instructed by the Baal Shem Tov not to tell the Alter Rebbe about him, because Alter Rebbe's parents were. Alter Rebbe told the Baal Shem Tov told the parents of the Alter Rebbe that he's not supposed to come to the Baal Shem Tov. He came one time that he by his upshernish, and there was a whole interesting story how they told the Alter Rebbe, this is your grandfather, and he said he wants to know more about him, and he was very just that meaning it had a very deep impression on him, but he wasn't allowed to know about the Baal Shem Tov. And he was upset at his teacher, Rabbi Yaakov Skabla. How come he didn't share with me about the Baal Shem Tov? Why didn't he tell me about the Baal Shem Tov? Until he learned about the divine concept, the godly concept of the different names of Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and Elokim. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is the name of Hashem, which is a source of God's infinity, God's transcendence, that God's power to transcend, God's power to be infinite, God's power to be unlimited. The name of Elokim is God's energy of filtering and limiting and hiding himself. Those are two divine energies. God both is called in our prayers Hagadol, the great one, which means God's infinite. God also called Hagibur, the mighty one, which means God's ability to hide himself, God's ability to contract his light. So it does sound like the ability to contract light is something which is lower and takes away. One second. But Hashem's purpose in creation is he wants to make a home in the lowest realm. He wants to make a home here. He wants the home to be in a place where there is darkness. And here in the place where there's darkness, we should make a home for Hashem. And specifically, where there's darkness, make a home for Hashem, we tap into God's very essence. In this world, making the world a home for Hashem, just like in your own home, you're able to express yourself fully. So too, by this world, through doing Torah mitzvahs in this physical world, we are able to connect to God's essence. So in a similar way, hold on. The Alter Rebbe felt that his teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, his revelation was on the level of Yudke Vavke. It was more of a transcendent kind of revelation. It was a higher kind of revelation. And his role in the world was Chabad. What's Chabad about? Bring it down to the intellect, bring it down to a way that makes sense. So it's not a, it does sound like a contraction, does sound like a limitation. On the other hand, it's not really a limitation. It's a limitation with the purpose of connecting to the essence. It's limitation, it's deliberately a limitation of hiding that light, hiding that more inspiring earlier talks and putting it more into the language of the intellect, more packaging it in a way that could be developed and for the purpose of making it more homey, making it more of a friend of mine went to Japan and he visited a professor of Yiddish. That guy's not Jewish, and he's one of the greatest authorities of Yiddish in the world. And he asked this Japanese professor, "Why do you like Yiddish so much?" So he says, "Hamish." It's homey. It's homey. So in a similar way, the role of bringing the godly concepts down to our intellect is to make it more homey, make them more me. When the Alter spoke originally, the earlier discourses, they were more lightning and thunder, but they were less me. The goal of him contracting them was to make it more me. Hold on a second. I just want to say the point. Where am I going? Chachma and Bina are the ability to both understand Hashem and the ability to, so to speak, see Hashem. The ability to have that. What?
Chachma and Bina, you're not going to understand Hashem. It leads up to Das. That's where you understand it.
Okay. So there's another function of Das. Another function of Das is that it causes the initial inspiration. You first have that lightning bolt, right? That initial inspiration, initial lightning bolt, that flash of wow, that initial flash has a value that understanding doesn't have. Understanding doesn't have that value of that flash, because the initial inspiration is more like the Alter Rebbe, when his earlier discourses, when they're more inspiring, right? They're more inspiring. They're more wow. The best thing would be is to have the intellect, and have the intellect still be illuminated with the truth of that flash. You with me? Is that what I'm talking about? You hear? Okay.
No, I hear you, but I'm just not.
Listen. I'll say what. There's your understanding, and then there's. Okay. Let me give an example. I saw Niagara Falls. I didn't. Let's say I did. And I explained to what Niagara Falls looks like, and explained to you the tons, the amount of water and the gallons of ever. And the best thing would be is that in my intellectual presentation of Niagara Falls, you hear the majesty, you hear the magnitude, the incredible vision of seeing the Niagara Falls. Even though I'm putting it down into words and into little pieces, you still feel the wow of it. The wow factor shouldn't get diminished just because I'm bottling it down into bite-sized intellectual pieces. That is what Das does. How does Das do that? Das means I'm going to care about this. I want to put myself into this. I want to get this. I want this to make sense to me. I really care that I should know this.
Right.
When I do that, I cause the initial inspiration of the idea to illuminate my understanding, so that even though I'm bottling it down to bite-sized pieces, it still has the same pristine light as the initial inspiration. When I really care to get the concept, when I really care about what I'm learning, although I'm going down to bite-sized pieces of it, I'm still getting the full light of it. I'm not losing the light. If I really care about it, that will bring the Chachma into the Bina. The Chachma will illuminate the Bina. Bina is darker than Chachma. Bina is about moving away from the concept and cutting it up into 100 pieces.
Bina is in between.
Bina is understanding.
Sort of, yeah.
Yes, Jonathan.
I think 100% of the times when I've heard about this concept, usually you have Chokhmah, it leads to Bina, you get Das. But here you're saying start from Das.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. We're saying, right.
You ever seen that before?
Yeah, it's a rare concept. It doesn't always say it this way. You're right. It's a rare way of saying it. And what it's saying is that you have to decide initially, I want to really get this. When you title, and it's both. Das does two things. Das, first of all, makes the things I understood before to matter to me. I don't just understand the concept. I also brought it home to how I feel about it. What does it really mean? Is it really true? That's Das. Is it really true? But Das also is my decision. I really want to get.
True, Das, you know it's true. Bina, you might question it.
Okay.
Das is you're certain.
Okay, the higher level of Das,
Das,
the Elyon, is what connects to Chachma and Bina. The lower level of Das is what connects the intellect to the feelings.
I gotta really think about that. You're getting very heavy for me.
In one sentence recap, then we'll stop and break today. We're discussing how you start off with Das. Starting off with Das, Yonatan, is the higher level of Das. The higher level of Das is where you decide, I really care about what I'm learning. And that will cause the initial flash of Chachma to illuminate your being. Then there's another function of Das, after you've processed it fully, and then you want to bring it down to yourself, and you want to think about what that really means to you. That's the lower level of Das. Okay. All right. Chazak Baruch.
I have a question.
Sorry, time's up. Go ahead.